Well, I guess we'll go ahead and begin the meeting at 7:03 or whatever it is. So, there's no one really here for the public forum, so we'll just move on to number 2, which is scheduled appointments. And we have Jill Marsano from Vermont. What does that stand for, actually?
Vermont Utility Management Services.
Thank you.
Say again.
Vermont Utility Management Services.
Okay.
We generally go just by VTUMS because it's short and sweet, and
I like
it
that.
stands for the longer name.
Tons has a lot to do with digestion.
Sure does. And when your utilities are not managed well, it creates massive indigestion.
Maybe they don't know what you do.
Just in case you guys don't know, my husband and I run a company that provides operations and maintenance and repairs for water, wastewater, stormwater facilities and anaerobic digesters. So it's all kind of wrapped around ways to, kind of our buzz line is to create a cleaner, greener Vermont. So we're around how to create cleaner water, cleaner environments, and so an anaerobic digester is on my list of things that I want to do in my life, is be able to run one. And he designs them for a living, and he's my father.
Welcome.
John Forster.
Nice.
We'll look forward to learning more.
Yep. So my name is John Forster. I'm a civil engineer. I graduated from UVM quite a few years ago. I had a 30-person engineering firm that Joe worked with me at, which I sold 10 years ago. And I've been, I started a new company, basically just myself. So I've been focusing on renewable energy and specifically anaerobic digestion for farms, for wastewater treatment plants, for any kind of combination, and specifically mixed feedstock. So whether it's cow manure plus food waste or other organics, and there's a lot more energy available when you do that, and so that's a lot of what I do. So I am a Vermonter. I was born in Newport, Vermont, and even though I'm working on projects right now in California, Mexico, and North Carolina, my heart is here, and I really want to be able to put some more in here. I've been involved with a few of the anaerobic digesters, some of the farm AD ones, and a bunch of the municipal ones, anaerobic digesters. So I've been involved with over 50 different anaerobic digester projects. So my dream is to have one or more like regional facilities, and I know a lot of the solid waste districts have been talking about how we're going to deal with Act 148 and the organics diversion. And then on the wastewater side, it costs a lot of money for people to get their sludge moved. You guys get it pumped once or twice a year. Middlebury has, tens of thousands of dollars that they spend, and Rutland has hundreds of thousands of dollars that they spend. And so the technologies that I want to go over quickly are well suited to take all of the above, and therefore you can take advantage of that and have significant renewable energy that comes from waste materials such as wastewater sludge and cow manure, and other waste materials such as food waste and other organics, and creates a lot of electrical energy and thermal energy. So I'm going to be going over that quickly. So I've got one for each at least.
Are the two of you together?
Yeah. She.
We still have, we need one more over here.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Right?
Yeah, there's plenty. So some of this is going to be over your head, so I'm going to go
He's
through
been an
it.
engineer for like so long, so if you need the human side of things, I may pipe in. And I'll just kind of give my view of this, my humanistic view of this, is we can take anything organic in a controlled environment, place it into these well-designed digester, sealed tanks, digesters, and produce very great clean energy and also byproducts that are also very wonderful, lovely, usable. And so it's an excellent investment for a company of sorts to invest in and build in Bristol and make a lot of very good clean energy for the town.
And a lot of others. So I'm not going to read a lot of this stuff. I just want to. So when you don't have this big a municipal system, but when you have a municipal wastewater plant such as Middlebury or such as Rutland that has anaerobic digesters, they're suited only to wastewater sludge and very limited other materials because that's what they're designed for. So they have a certain amount of energy potential, and frankly the wastewater sludge, in my terminology, if it has an amount of energy that's 1x per gallon, okay? And from my perspective, it's really kindling because the food waste and the other ones has a lot more energy, and when they work together, they actually add together, and that's what I'm going to show you. So this is baseline. This is good, better, best, and you'll notice that it goes up to 7 or 8 times as much energy for the same exact materials because of the technology. And the byproducts also are, it's really a win-win-win because you have a sealed container, you take organic waste products, you help solve the Act 148 organics diversion, you help solve the renewable energy X% that you need by a certain date, and the end products are all reusable, so there's not like this horrible stuff that comes out. It's actually, in the case of a farm anaerobic digester, you put manure and food waste in, and what happens is the end result is called digestate, the effluent from the digester, and you put it through a solid separator and you actually make bedding for the cows, which some of this is all happening at Fort Hills, but these are like 10 times bigger or whatever. 10 times more energy, not necessarily 10 times bigger. And the end product is that bedding, but then the liquid ends up getting put onto the fields, and done right, it actually is much better for the crop uptake because the nutrients are converted to more readily available forms. And in many of them I've worked on, they have 4 hay crops instead of 3 per year. They have half as much that they put on the fields per acre. They save $100,000 a year on not having to buy bedding. They save another $100,000 a year on not having to buy chemical fertilizer. So instead of trucking chemical fertilizer from Connecticut, wherever it comes from, it's made right there on the farm, and the food waste helps make it better. So it's a win-win-win. And by the way, it reduces the pathogens by over 99% and reduces the odors by over 90%. So when you have a farm, when you have you're spreading manure between the first and second crop and second and third crop, your neighbors are out for July 4th and they really don't want you doing that. So a lot of the farmers actually buy chemical fertilizers for that point because it doesn't smell as much. So now they don't have to because they can put this on, so it helps a lot. So just very quickly, the typical municipal one, this happens to be the ones in Rutland, 2 of the ones in Rutland. So they have traditional municipal mixers. They sometimes take other feedstocks, but it doesn't really take advantage of it because it wasn't designed for that. And sometimes they've added combined heat and power units, CHP, which is a generator with heat exchangers, but it really doesn't pay for itself well because they weren't designed to do that. So some of the other ones, the newer municipal ones, and there's a few examples that I'll show you that I've either been to, studied, or designed, or both. And so in the case of this one in Worcester, Ohio, they took existing digesters like the one you saw over here. They took those covers off, the floating covers. They put these membrane covers so they have more biogas storage. They added some other receiving systems to be able to take a lot different food feedstock, different food waste, and more importantly, they added better mixers that are better suited for that. And they got a certain percentage more by doing that, but not necessarily the ultimate. This one I went to in Ohio, in a different place in Ohio, that was even better because this was 1.8 megawatts. So they're taking wastewater sludge, and at the time I went, they weren't taking any other food waste yet, but they were doing that.
Could I just stop a second?
Oh, sure, sorry.
And ask, why are you telling us this? Did I miss something?
Okay, so the intention
What are you
is to...
proposing here?
Oh, okay. To consider having one sited in your town, and I'm going to tell you the advantages of it and how we can do it with no cost to you and all the benefits that you're looking for because of the type of projects that I've been working on.
Okay.
So
Yes, thank you.
what's in it for you is you'd actually get paid a lease price for some of your stuff. You get electricity and other energy at less cost than you're paying now, and it's and again it's going to divert your you're going to reduce your sludge disposal costs and get rid of the food waste in a really good way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, so these are some that I've again worked on and or visited. This one's in Maine that I worked on. This one, and they're taking municipal sludge and some food waste and making a lot of energy. So just a megawatt is enough for 800 homes of electricity, plus another 500 homes of thermal energy. If you had nearby greenhouse or something, that would be free. It would be for private.
So the input would be wastewater sludge from what, the village
It can
system?
be, or from, 10 wastewater plants, whatever. It
10
can,
wastewater plants.
From,
well, Rutland, the middle, it could be.
All those, but the plant would be here in Bristol.
Yeah.
For all those places.
It could be. I mean, we can make it small, medium, or large, depending on what your needs are. It can take a lot of other materials, which I'm going to be getting to in a second. Some of the better technologies, the one that I call best, can not only take wastewater sludge and food waste, but actually can take other materials and a whole list of materials. On the next page, cafeteria food waste from colleges, hospitals, wastewater sludge, septage, wood chips, sawdust, yard waste, crop waste and trimmings, food processing waste, brewery and distillery waste. There's a lot of microbreweries in Vermont, especially in Burlington area, and every single one of them would like to double the amount of beer that they produce. However, they're limited on how much they can send to the wastewater plant because it's very high BOD, biological octane demand, and the city or town is saying, you can't send anymore, you can't grow.
Right.
And so in each of those cases, they could actually grow, and the wastewater plant capacity would be increased because we're diverting it, and by breaking it down so much better, they would have more capacity at the wastewater plants for more from other people. Sorry.
I don't know if we can ask questions.
Sure.
Okay. Some of these items that could be potential feedstock.
Right, yep.
Could be very small, buckets full.
Sure.
Yeah. Who is going to pay the cost of delivering any of this to the central station in Bristol?
Yeah, so in this case, the collection and trucking is all going to be handled quite possibly with Jill's company and other people making arrangements for that. Instead of them trucking it to the one landfill in Coventry right now, they'd be able to bring it 3 miles and bring it here, which would save a huge amount of money on that disposal cost, and it would comply with the intention of Act 148 to divert organics from going to the landfill by 2020. And there's not a lot that's being done right now. Individuals are, putting buckets. My wife has one under the sink, and we bring it every week to the solid waste districts.
Is there a mile radius from the central digester that would make it just uneconomic to drive out to get a bucket full or whatever?
Well, the bucket thing would be, probably the county, would be, and there'd be people that would collect it. There's some of the people that I've been dealing with that deal in different parts of the state or grow compost. Lisa has got a facility, a couple of facilities, one in Moortown and one near White River Junction. And so she collects a bunch of stuff and makes compost. She also collects beer waste and brings it to some of the other digesters, anyway, so there'd be, none of these would be a cost to Bristol. It would be part of the operation and maintenance and making it work and making sure it keeps working all the time. That would be done by the group and not anything that you'd be responsible for. So you'd be hosting it, and you get some advantages of hosting it by, the rental of some land, less expensive energy for your nearby whatever structures, more other energy, less disposal costs, more capacity in your wastewater plant because you're diverting a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of advantages, and it sounds too good to be true, but it's my dream come true because I've been trying to do this, locally on a small to medium to large scale, and a lot of the developers stop short of when you have to do like a feasibility study, and the investors that they have don't fund that. So you have a great place to go, everybody's happy, and then you stop because you can't do that first step. In this case, the first step is free. It's going to be analyzed, and if it makes sense, it's going to go forward. And then there would be an arrangement, a municipal/private arrangement that would be necessary for you to host it, and you get all these benefits. So,
have you spoken with the select board or other?
No, this was intended to be the first test to
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The Energy Committee.
Because there's certainly an energy
Totally
aspect
appreciate
to this, but there's a whole lot more to it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we intend to, but we wanted to come here first because it is energy. And
I have another question.
Sure.
This variety of feedstocks, would they all go into the same digester at the same time?
well, that's part of the whole recipe management, which is what I do for a living. And so one of the neat things about the technology that this is a picture of is that it's really agnostic to any the feedstock. In other words, it can take anything. And usually when you do an anaerobic digester, it's based on X and Y and Z that's going to be going in it, and sometimes you run out of X and all of a sudden you're kind of stuck because you don't have the right combination, and then you know the output goes down and the thing doesn't work properly and all that kind of stuff. With this one, if you based it on cafeteria food waste and wastewater sludge and brewery waste, for instance, and some or all of those disappeared, you add wood chips instead and you keep right on going. It can take any of them. The wood chips are a good energy source, but we usually have to pay for it. When you have food waste, you're paying, whether you know it or not, $90 a ton to get it to go to the landfill. Eventually, whether you pay $10 a week or whatever. And so we would be able to take that for like $70 a ton and put it in here and gather it, use it, make the products, and you don't have to worry about any of it because it'll be done independently.
Storage tanks required for these variety of feedstocks?
Yeah, there's different, some of the slides that I had were different receiving tanks. There's some that are in the ground, there's some that are above the ground if it's liquid and stuff. And they're all sealed, they're all sealed. And the digesters are actually, anaerobic means without air. So for instance, this is a picture of one that happens to be in Germany, but that's at the edge of a city, a major city, and it's right there, and it's so sealed and so odor proof that it's allowed to be there. So that besides the digester being sealed, in this case, we make sure to have a negative pressure in the building so that the odor definitely stays inside. And when you have a truck that comes in, there's a cover that opens up, and you dump into the. I'll just see if I have a picture. You dump into the tank while there's a negative pressure, and then the second that the truck is finished dumping, you close it, and it's still a negative pressure. So there's just not any.
Could I go back to?
Sure.
I kind of want to. We're getting into details, but
Yep.
a couple of maybe starter questions.
Yep.
Why Bristol?
Because she lives nearby, and who are you talking to
Oh.
about the possibility of Bristol?
Okay, so here's why I think Bristol would be a decent. So I was thinking we would want to possibly site it in New Haven.
And where?
New Haven, because the gas line is there, Route 7 is there, etc. However, Ian was here the other day talking to Valerie while I was here and said the power bill for the pumps at the water pump station seems awful expensive. And I said, relative to what? Etc. And he said, we have to get 80% renewable energy in Bristol by 2050. It's a real challenge. And so we've got to cut energy consumption, this, that, and the other thing. And I said, well, would you like to put an anaerobic digester here in Bristol to produce enough renewable energy for 5 towns around you? And he goes, could we do that? I said, yes, you could. So why Bristol? For me, location-wise, I believe that we have a couple different spots that we could site it. I think that it's a very green community. Having lived in Moncton and really grown here in Bristol, with my kids going to school here and whatnot, this is a farming community. It's also a tight village, and I don't know, I just think that it's a good spot. It's and I know that I can service it well because I'm 5 minutes away.
How you say you think about a couple of spots? Could you give us an idea?
Yep. So one spot that we could possibly site it if the site was deemed to be appropriate would be the town landfill.
Okay.
I've had a short conversation with Eric of the highway department, and he said, oh look, we used to have methane that we produced at the landfill, but now there's nothing. And I said, that's interesting.
What did they do with
Yes.
they produced methane and used it?
They used to produce methane.
There's hardly any level land there.
Again, this is like so preliminary.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
in the fact that this is very preliminary is that we could come in here a year from now with the investors, something completely designed, and say, hey, we'd like to put this in Bristol. We're doing an actual flip the script and saying, let's see if this is a community that wants to have the first anaerobic digester to be the first facility to accept organic waste in the state, instead of people going to Coventry
Yeah.
and disposing of it in a landfill. Let's turn it into energy. Let's turn it into suitable soil amendments, etc. Let's stop making garbage. Let's start making energy.
I don't feel good.
Where else were you thinking?
At times, we had considered Rutland.
I mean,
I
as
mean,
far
in
as Bristol,
Bristol.
you said a couple spots.
The only other spot that I had, well, there's other things that I can't mention in this meeting on a camera.
Okay.
So, just because.
Roughly how many truck loads a day are you talking about?
Depends on the scale.
Even on a big scale, it'd be only 3 3 to 5 truckloads a day. It's not really that much. There's a lot of energy depending on, again, what you're bringing in. And I worked on one, the one you see on the second to last page, whatever, is 3 megawatts, which is enough for 2,400 homes of electricity. And even at that scale, it's like 4 truckloads a day that come in, and you know, and then they use the bedding on site, and then they're using the liquid as they would the liquid manure, you know, as fertilizer. So it's not a huge thing at all. It's again, it's a win-win-win because you're saving all the energy and the renewable and the diversion and all that kind of stuff.
Would the community be able to weigh in on what it is, what kind of stuff you made? You know, we'd be agreeing on what products you're making, like the kind of energy, the
That's
type
right.
of stuff that goes on the soil, the stuff, like what
Exactly.
kind of bedding.
Yeah, sure.
We'd have to agree to all that. And
Yeah,
what
yeah,
kind of
sure.
energy would you be producing?
Well, again, it could be small, medium, or large. So the large one, this one here is 3 megawatts.
I mean, not amount, but like it's electricity?
Oh, okay. So in Bristol, it would be electricity because you don't have a natural gas pipeline because you don't want one. And so it would be electricity and thermal energy. And so if you had which you don't, if you had a big factory that needed a whole bunch of heat for processes, that would be available. In this case, you probably don't, but the electricity could be used, and again, for your own use, if you're paying 16 cents a kilowatt hour, you know, we probably sell it to you for 14 cents a kilowatt hour or something.
Where would the heat go if there
Yeah.
isn't an outlet for it?
What's that?
The thermal outlet.
Oh, it's just radiators.
I know, but if you don't have a good factory,
It's just radiators that go, it just goes up in the air. It's not a,
Do you lose the heat energy?
yeah. You need a certain amount of the energy for the process,
Yeah.
like 10 or 20% of it, and the rest of it, if you know, what I've seen is, like on a farm, they might use it for the milking parlor, they might use it for
Yeah.
utility buildings and that, but they aren't set up for the barns necessarily. You could put like fan coil units in a barn, but, so most of the thermal energy, in most cases ended up being just, you know, I'm sure at Fort Hills, they just have radiators and they might use it for, again, some of the utility buildings, but most of it gets radiated off. And
How far away could that heat be used? Like, could you pump it from the landfill to downtown?
sure, yeah, you can. Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, a lot of that heat.
Would it be hydronic or
Heat pump
steam
could-
or underground or?
Yes, it could be what, so typically, it's a combined heat and power unit, which means generators plus heat exchangers. And so typically we make hot water that's like 160 degrees Fahrenheit, because that's what we need to heat the tanks. But that could go in an insulated pipe, you know, half a mile, whatever, and you know, be similar to a centralized heat plant like they have in Montpelier. That in that case is wood chips or whatever. So you can do that if you want.
well, the landfill's not that far from the high school.
Oh no, it's not very
Right.
far from the high school. It's not very far from the.
No, I mean, can you imagine saving the high school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
$1,000 a
thinking.
year?
Yeah, it'd be.
Patrick Breen would be like, oh.
Yeah, totally.
Because they
Great.
keep saying, somebody please come up with a plan to help save us some money, and it's,
I mean, seriously,
These are real.
And in that case, if it's electricity to the grid, we would actually give that thermal energy to you because otherwise it'd be going up in the air,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
with a radiator. So you'd have to pay for the pipe or whatever, but we'd connect you.
probably another important thing to mention is in all of this, there will be investors that will pay for this upfront cost for this project, investors that want to invest in green projects. There is a certain relationship and a contractual relationship that will happen with Green Mountain Power, being that this energy goes to their grid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are the ones that will buy the energy
Yeah.
from this anaerobic digester. It's just that we can also create other agreements with these other types of areas within the town because it's cited here.
You mean like net metering things, or we don't do
I'm
that?
not exactly, I don't have all of the details.
Yeah.
It's like we're here. I would like to get the public excited about it and going, we're gonna have the first, organic
First major one. There's some that are putting a small amount,
small
but
ones,
this
but
is
to
like,
have a place
So
for.
the concept is that it would serve, what, 5 towns? Is that the idea?
well, the electricity, if we had 3 megawatts, that's enough for 2,400 homes and heat for another 15.
I was gonna say Bristol, I know there's 632 on the water system, and that's just the village.
In the
area. That's
village.
just like
Right.
this little part, so.
That doesn't mean that, it goes onto the grid, and it doesn't mean that you get that particular energy. But if we were right here, we could, for instance, serve electricity to the school behind the meter and sell it at a less fee because they're right there.
Yeah.
And we could do that, and if they're paying 14 cents a kilowatt hour and we sell it for 12, and ours would be 12 for the next 10 years, by the way, with no
Oh, when
escalation, because it's revenue for us, but it's a savings for you, so it's a win-win, another win-win.
That's great.
So that's one way.
Yeah.
So I'll go through the rest quickly. So the list on this page that says 1 West 1 Nichols Street is just a typical list of the most common feedstocks, wastewater sludge, septage, and the relative energy. So skipping down to the bottom, glycerin, which is a biodiesel byproduct. There's 2 kinds of glycerin. There's a good glycerin that they sell, and there's waste glycerin, which is used to cost them $100 a ton to get rid of. It's actually really good used properly in an anaerobic digester of the right type. And ice cream waste is 20x. So there, and even the brewery waste, if you have, I actually designed the Magic Cat Brewing Company's beer waste to energy digester 10 years ago. And so you can take those spent grain and other waste, liquid waste, and basically reduce that BOD by 90%. So when you're going to the wastewater plant, you don't have to pay that huge fee. And it frees up space in the wastewater plant that would have been taken up before.
I think maybe we should skip right to
Okay, so,
this page
Yeah.
here.
How clean does your ingredient list have to be? It seems like with all the gathering, it has to be sorted.
so there's 2 basic types, clean or with packaging materials, okay? So if you're talking about a cafeteria waste, it would need it to be depackaged, and that would be a system that would be installed, and I've worked on some of those, and so they basically, you take the stuff, you put it in this machine, it goes through and it squishes the organics through some holes, and the inorganics stay, and you bring it to landfill. You actually wash it off because the liquid still has nutrients in it, and you bring that to landfill, but then you're using all the organics for energy, and that goes right into the digester. So these options, there are other options, but in this case we'd be talking about, again, combined heat and power, which means generator plus heat exchangers, and it could be as much as 5 megawatts, it could be as much as 7 million BTUs per hour of hot water. My boiler is 80,000 BTUs per hour. This is 17 million, so it's like 2,000 homes worth in that case. So the byproducts on a typical one, there's fertilizer or animal bedding. It's about 35% solids. It's this nice fluffy bedding. And then the liquid ends up being what's called Class B, which is not Class A, which is stabilized and used for fertilizer on farm fields and that kind of stuff. With the advanced system, you could actually have real organic fertilizer that's good for organic farms and worth a lot more, and it's sanitized, so it's clean and everything. And then you could also have, you can actually take, when you upgrade, if you are upgrading to natural gas, it's called biomethane, to go into a pipe. The thing you're taking out is the CO2, because it's like 65% methane, CH4, and 35% CO2, carbon dioxide. And so you can, usually that's just stripped off and then just let go of the atmosphere, which isn't good. If you take it and you can convert it to food grade renewable CO2, so the Coca-Cola could buy local renewable CO2 instead of trucking that in from, you know, Massachusetts or whatever. So the last one I probably should have started with, what's in it for you, is it's design, build, own, operate, so there's no hassle, no risk, no cost to you, you're just hosting it. So instead of having to bond for something and you know, get money and raise your taxes or whatever, zero. Again, we would pay money to lease the lands from what if you wanted to be an equity partner, you could be a 0 to 20% equity partner. The investors are already wanting their 5-year payback on their investment, and so that's why they want the operations to be by the group that is developing it, so they're sure they're getting their money back. So it's a zero risk for other investors because the main investors are getting their money. So if somebody wanted to, an individual or a community, at the end of 5 years, once the investors have gotten their money, entities can buy the thing, and then we train you how to take it over. Again, reduce costs for renewable energy, guarantee reduction in food, in waste disposal costs, again, sludge and whatever. Free if it's, you know, nearby, whatever, hot water, a lot of hot water for that, for process heat or building heat. If you do have food grade renewable CO2 available. And one of the things I mentioned a couple of times is that if you take the material and you reduce the BOD by 90%. If I take the wastewater sludge that normally would go through a filter press or whatever, the stuff that comes out goes back to the headworks and it's still got a lot of BOD in it. We would take it away and it would never go back, so there'd be some extra capacity. You know, more of the Middlebury or Rutland's in that case, as opposed to your specific wastewater plant. But it's good because you're increasing that capacity. So I think it's a win-win-win. And whether you are open to, you know, small, medium, or large, I'm working with different groups that have some of each. There's some nice smaller ones that have come out recently that are, you know, 75 kW, whatever, 75 kilowatts per hour. And then, you know, that's 3 megawatts, that's 5 megawatts. So, you know, to help the Bristol to meet their goals of renewable energy, diversion of organics, and green energy, it's a win-win.
Does it employ any local people to be?
Sure, yeah. There would probably be at least 5 people, and at least 2 or 3 of those would be local. My intention, I don't own these companies, I just work, you know, with them. I'm the engineer part. So it would probably be VTOMs that would be doing at least 2 of the positions, you know, that would be local and would be, I would help train them to do their part in running these and the recipe, you know, keeping the recipe going and all that kind of stuff.
And the companies are, where are the companies that would, they're all over, depending on size?
Yeah. The bigger one that some of these pictures are as they're out of Pennsylvania. They're doing stuff all over the country and all over the world as far as that goes. There's other groups from New York State. You know, there's different groups that I've been working with. Each of them have, you know, different alternatives that could be brought here.
So one of the questions I have comes to mind, and you talked about, odors and how you deal with that, trucking, traffic and all of that. What are the kinds of resistance when you speak to communities or when you begin this process? What kind of resistance do you get from communities? What are the things that they're most concerned about?
Well, I wasn't involved with it, but Green Mountain Power had a proposed multi-farm system in St. Albans town. And there were some local, not in your backyard people that came forth, and which is really strange because when you're solving a lot of these things and helping the environment, but their concerns, some of it was the truck traffic, which, the farm that I worked on with the 3 megawatt system, they have 20 employees, and we've added 4 trucks a day. And there's 20 other trucks that come in and out of that farm every day. So it's like minuscule, okay? Some of the concerns on a farm thing is are you, especially near the lake, like St. Albans Town, are you gonna have stormwater issues with stuff going in the lake? Well, first of all, it's all sealed containers. Second of all, there would be a stormwater collection system and treatment system like any other project. And so it's not any different. And again, you'd think with renewable energy and solving all these other green things, it would be well received. So there's that kind of, but when I worked on these in Massachusetts and New York and Maine, people endorsed them well because it was such a win-win. And I had at the grand opening there were state and federal officials, local officials, permit authorities, and they couldn't only say it's a win-win-win-win. It's great for the community. It's helping. It's employing people, and on the farm side, it's actually a baseline industry for farms that are struggling. And especially if you have a system that somebody else is paying for, and you're hosting it, and in some cases they get the farmer or one of the farm family gets hired to be one of the operators, and so the farm gets X amount of money that they didn't get before, which helps them, and they get all this renewable energy at reduced cost and everything.
Right, and there's a little bit more, so again, in my company, we run water systems, wastewater systems, etc. So for a wastewater plant, residual management is a big deal. So you have your liquid that's going, whether it's going to a leach field or it's directing itself to a river or a lake, you always have solids. And those solids right now, they're being put into landfills. They have tons of energy. So something that's not actually garbage is being put into a landfill as a hazardous waste. So I run several facilities. I'm friends with most operators throughout the state. I've had lots of conversations with Eamon Towig, who runs the residuals management program in the state of Vermont, and said, don't you just wish we had a regional facility to just turn this into energy and stop throwing it in a landfill and creating issues? This stuff is high in nitrogen, it's high in phosphorus. Throw some water in it, let it leak in the lake. Let's just grow some more algae blooms. So I'm like, this is not smart. We can put it in a digester. We can create fertilizer if that's what we choose to create. If that fertilizer is appropriate for use in specified areas on farms for use here in Vermont, great. If it's not, let's sell it to another state. Let's sell it to a state where they can't get phosphorus or nitrogen because they don't have sources for it.
So, and then, back to just on the fertilizer side. So if I make organic, local NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and I use that and I have more crops and I put less gallons per acre on, and I have more crops and I have less smell, and I divert not having to buy thousands of tons of chemical fertilizer coming in from out of state. So when you're talking about phosphorus, it's already here in the food and it's already here in that. But if I use it as a controlled fertilizer, and if I need it and it fits within the nutrient management plan of the farm, it does. but it's still local stuff instead of trucking stuff.
So you're saying might as well use the phosphorus here rather than import more
Use it
phosphorus to the state.
Exactly.
Appropriately
Yeah.
outside of buffer zones appropriately so that it's not polluting the waters of the state.
Are there any safety concerns? You know, one of the things with the pipeline was people were worried about explosions and the such.
These are, you know, there's definitely, you know, safety rules for these. Unlike the pipeline, the pressure in one of these is less than 1 psi. You know, pipeline might be 500 psi or whatever. So, these, you know, like these biogas bladders, it's 3 inches of water column. That's like a 1/10 of a psi. So it's very low pressure. And if it happens to, and they're dual membranes, so there's an inner one and an outer one. And so if the inner one happens to leak, the other one catches it. And like I said, the buildings all have a negative pressure. So you're gathering stuff and filtering it, and it does, the smell
I
doesn't
mean,
go out.
would there be any concern like with
Like a
with a
Hindenburg.
leak, or not necessarily explosion, but a leak where the gases come out and the school's right next door to it? You know, this.
There's plenty of safety devices to monitor that and to control that, so that if there is any kind of leak, that gets dealt with right away. The signage is such that you know that, you know, you can't smoke from here to here, whatever. You know, it literally goes up if it comes out, and not to belittle that, but unlike LP gas that settles down,
Right.
this goes up, so that's a little less of a hazard. But there's definitely a bunch of NFPA codes that we have to follow in designing these. I've been involved with 50 of these, so they're both municipal and farm and municipal other ones, and those are all concerns at each place. You know, Middlebury has digesters, Rutland has digesters, and these are better and safer because they have higher pressures because of those floating cover things, and they're older and, you know, different, you know, technology. These are even better, and there's better controls up to the, you know, full current standards, whatever.
So going back to where the waste would come from, you mentioned that these other cities have digesters. Where could this community, this part of Addison County, provide enough to generate the 3 megawatts?
That's actually part of doing the analysis, and that's part
Right.
of what my job is to do, is to go source the relationships with all of the collectors
Right.
of organic materials and say, bring it here. Our tipping fee is X. You know, so make it attractive so that they're getting the benefit of a better relationship, better costs, and we're getting the feedstock that we need to produce the energy. So we want to keep having it help businesses, help schools, help, you know, people be able to dispose of these materials that are currently going to landfills that shouldn't be. They should be producing energy.
I was paid by Green Mountain Power to do a study for Rutland at the wastewater plant, for instance, and we could site one of these actually next door. It was actually Green Mountain Power land, and then take the sludge, save them $500,000 a year on sludge disposal costs and upgrades to the wastewater plant, for instance, in that case. And the city of Rutland, in that case, got scared only because, if you remember 10 or 15 years ago, they had the proposed trash burning facility that was there, Vicon, and that got built and permitted and built, and Vicon went belly up, and so the city inherited an Albatross, this machine, which is now the material recovery facility. You know, they've converted it, so they got spooked about that aspect. But some of these companies that I'm dealing with have Lloyd's of London insurance to cover that kind of things, which Vicon apparently didn't. You know, they just went belly up. So that spooked. And, you know, I know the people there in Rutland really well personally, public works director and stuff, and again, I was paid by Green Power to do the study, and they stopped short because now they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to have their sludge trucked to either Coventry or to Chattagay, New York, and it would save, again, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm probably going to approach them again because I have a more, stable, foolproof kind of a solution now with this kind of insurance, and hopefully they'll do. But if we, one thing about Bristol, it's kind of, not that far from Burlington, not that far from, even Rutland and Middlebury, and frankly, to get, and there's a lot of wood that comes in. The Lathrops have a lot, and they, right now they're selling it to the school at Middlebury, and they're selling the other half to Burlington Electric at the wood chip plant. But they've talked about the possibility of being considered as a source, of material.
If they did that, then those schools wouldn't get it though, right?
Unless they were able to increase production. It all depends
Right.
on what
'Cause,
their
yeah.
permits have.
I think our school can't get it from them anymore. We have to get it from somewhere else because they've been too busy or something with they have bigger.
The school I'm at was Middlebury College, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The
No, that's
major
okay.
contracts they have are that, and they would stop Burlington Electric first, sorry.
They would what?
They would stop going to Burlington Electric first before they abandoned the colleges and schools.
Well, it seems like an assessment of what's really possible would be
That's what we're
really,
saying.
really handy to know. And then that would also tell the town here what we could possibly expect depending on the size and the scale and all that, and what the town could.
Yeah, we wanted to come in here. If you said, no way, we don't want anything to do with this, sounds horrible, then we just pack it up and go home. If you're interested, and maybe we do some more research and some calculations and bring it to the select board with your at least initial partial endorsement, or however you want to call it. We just didn't want to go around you and because of the Energy Committee, and
That's great.
give you an opportunity
I
for.
appreciate it.
There are several interests that are looking at the Bristol town dump as a source for solar power.
Oh, really?
And we've even had a presentation here about that. So you'd find some competition for the use of the.
How much energy would it produce?
I'm sorry?
How much energy would it produce?
Well, I have no idea.
It was a
They're
150 kW. Yeah. It was
Just for
proposed.
you to know that, yeah.
Right.
So in those cases, you would host it and you'd get a hosting fee, right? I think.
Right.
Yeah, it would be
What's that?
they'd be leasing the land.
Yeah, they'd be
That's
leasing the
lease
land, so there'd be some kind of
And
fee.
there'd
that
be
you
some
would
kind
get.
of
Right.
net metering, something or other.
It wouldn't be necessarily being incompatible.
No, heck no. I mean, there's places that have wind, solar, and anaerobic
Oh,
digestion.
you could do it in the shade? Since you're making all that heat anyway.
Oh yeah, no. This got nothing to do with that. And it is base load, 24/7, period. These are 92 or 95% available. So the only time it's not at full output is when they have to do a minor, if you have engines, you have to do a minor engine rebuild once a year and a major one every 8 years. So that's the reason it's not 100%. Other than that, it's at full output. So I'm not anti-solar, anti-wind. And now Green Mountain Power is doing a lot more with batteries and that. But this is a lot less per kilowatt hour and produces a lot more kilowatts. For instance, the solar farm that's in Ferrisburg, right outside of Virgins, that belongs to Ernie Povenlow, and I was at one of the presentations he made a few years ago in public, And so that's called a megawatt system. It costs about $5.8 million to do, and they get like 50% grants. They're getting about 20 cents per kilowatt hour because of the feed-in tariff through the speed program from the state. And according to Ernie, who I know, personally, it's still a 12 or 15 year payback because, and part of the reason is that it's called a megawatt system, but it actually averages 130 kilowatts per hour to the grid, over the year, because the 100 is if it was 100% efficient and if it was 100% available. And by the time you're done, it's averaging 130, and that's one of the reasons the payback. At the same time that was being built, I was building the first phase in Maine, that's a megawatt system, that averages 900 kilowatts per hour. It costs $5.2 million. They're only getting 10 cents a kilowatt hour, and it's a 5-year payback. And it only took a half an acre, and the other thing took 16 acres. So I'm not against when it's just different. It's a different thing. I think there should be some of each. And one of the, I've gone to testify before, the Senate and House here in Vermont, because the farm systems were getting 14 cents a kilowatt hour, and the wind and solar were getting 20 or 25 cents an hour. And I was there, what's wrong with this picture? Because with wind, GE International gets 90% of the money. With the farm system, it's built by local people, and it stays here, and it's local labor. It should be the same or more. They've since, not because of me only, they've changed it so the feed-in tariff under 150 kilowatts is actually 19.9 cents per kilowatt hour now for the farm systems, and over that it's back to the 14 cents. But at least there's some acknowledgement of that, and they're trying to make it more level.
So it seems like at this point we need to talk as a committee,
Sure.
and then get back to you fairly quickly.
Yeah, if Bristol
Yeah.
would be a town that would want to allow a business that's an anaerobic digester to be a regional organics receiving facility to produce energy in the town.
A regional organics facility is what,
Yeah. That's what I would call it.
I
I
don't
mean,
think-
if you say anaerobic digester, people will go, oh.
We can weigh in on the relevance to the energy issues, but we really can't speak for the town.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's for sure.
yes.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted part of your solution to the 80% renewable energy to be a digester sited in the town of Bristol.
Is there a noise issue? No, it's quiet.
So when you have a generator, combined heat and power and generator, it has, we have to meet certain noise things. So there's noise insulation around the engine, and there's mufflers for the exhaust. And I've been standing right beside one of these. It sounds like a mumble of a freight train in a distance. It's a like that, like Cyrus' little motorcycle.
Oh, like a Harley?
That big Harley that Cyrus used to have. Anyways, it's just a noise, and it's not obtrusive at all. And it runs all the time, so it's not like you got on, off. It's just running because it has, 24/7.
Well, thank you for
Okay.
enlightening us
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah, very informative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Different
Learned a lot.
technology.
that sounds interesting.
And love the idea of
At the
using
end of the
waste.
payback period, the 5 years, okay, so the investors made their money, they're happy, their life is good. What's the,
So
Yeah.
the developer, developed it, and if the investors got paid back their investment, then the developer owns whatever. If somebody invested 20%, then you would have a valuation done of that facility, and if somebody had X amount of equity that they put in up front, then you would say this amount minus X equals this if you want to buy it out. If not, it just keeps going with the developer running it because he's already running.
Right, or there
So-
could be a local company
so it
that
may
would
or
want
may
to
not
buy, that
go
would be
for
involved
sale.
with it, that would
Oh,
want to buy
There
it.
would be,
There would likely be.
That would
Like
be
you'd
the
be
hope,
what?
yeah.
There would likely be a local company that would be very involved in the project that at the end of the 5 years would work towards buying the company to keep it local.
Yeah.
Is the
Yeah.
vision that I have.
Yeah.
That's great.
So-
That would be really good.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, whether, you know, if somebody wants to be a 20% equity partner, it could be anybody in the community up in the state. It's just an investment.
Yeah.
And it's a really good green investment, and it's a good payback. When you have renewable energy, that's a 4 or 5 year payback, that's really good. And so it's,
I guess, oh, go ahead.
I was just curious, how would it be determined what Bristol's renewable energy benefit would be?
Yeah.
well, again, it would be
The electricity is being sold to GMP.
right, but if we could do things like behind the meter for the school or behind the meter for your pump station or whatever, that would be a direct benefit. And then you could count that, you know, towards your renewable energy.
But outside of that,
We would have to ask how that would be treated by, is it the legislature that has this?
I guess.
Who is mandating that by 2050?
It's the state of Vermont.
I'd want to understand how they're interpreting that
We're
ruling.
doing,
I don't know.
we're going through an enhanced energy plan right now,
Right,
and there is a target for every town in the state
right.
by 2030, 2050, and so on. And our target is, I was just looking to see if I could pull it up quick, I can't. We're something like 10% toward our target right now.
And so if I
In
put a
kilowatt
solar
hours.
panel on my roof in Bristol, does that count?
That
towards
counts.
it? So that's why I'm saying if this is producing
Yes.
a megawatt or
Yes.
two, it'd be nice to know how much energy is Bristol using
Yeah.
and what is 80% of it? And could we like blow that out of the water?
My understanding
Because I have a
is,
feeling we could.
If you had a megawatt, it'd be, again, 800 homes worth, that's a lot more than 10%.
my understanding is that we're being asked as a community to facilitate the generating of something like 13 megawatts by 2050. Okay.
For
so
just
that could-
Bristol?
13 megawatts?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Okay?
yeah. We're at one
It's good to know
point,
the target.
and that's rooftops, you know, anything there is that's generating electricity. So this would go toward that target.
So
That's why we want to say.
the normal one would be 5 megawatts. You know, this commercial one that I'm talking about, it could be bigger as far as that goes. But, and you know, we've done some initial research on feedstock materials, it's, you know, on a small scale, people are saying, you know, how are you ever gonna get rid of all this food waste and reuse it, okay? And so there's kind of two things that you have kind of a, if you, instead of a watershed, it's like a food shed. So you have a certain radius that it makes sense to collect, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
At this scale, there'd be that, but there'd also be some, you know, other trucks coming in from further away, because when you're bringing in 52, you know, cubic yards in one truck, it's only, you know, 1/10 of that or less that's being used to get it here, and the energy is excellent.
Yeah, I wonder if we could come in off of Burpee Road to access that land. Or we could just site it in another spot. It's really just where.
There's a little dirt road that comes up from the
Yeah.
Bristol Morse Store, or whatever it's
That's
called.
Yeah, that is very, yeah.
Kilgore's.
What's that?
I think it's Kilgore's, isn't
Yeah,
Oh, that's
maybe.
right. It's Kilbourne's, that's right.
Yeah.
It's more just an idea of where is the best spot to site it so that the most benefit can
Yeah, it
be
can,
distributed to the, you know,
Most
to the
local.
buildings around it, to, yeah.
The place that has the sheds and stuff, is that still in Bristol, or is that
Livingston Farm?
yeah,
Yeah.
is that in Bristol, or is that in
I don't think it's New Haven yet,
New
is it?
Haven?
That's probably
Livingston.
because those apartments
off of
are.
Hardscrabble?
No, he's talking
At the
about the
Four
Four
Corners.
Corners.
Oh, that's Bristol.
That's Bristol.
That's still Bristol?
Yeah.
I mean, near there would be fine also, it doesn't really matter. You need to have 3-phase power nearby, that's all. You know,
Yeah.
to
Which
go
is
to the
on,
Hewitt.
it's on Hewitt and it's on 116. not much else.
Yeah, so that's where just like we have to figure out where's the best spot to site it, where's the best spot for traffic, where does it have the right land mass, where is it, relatively flat. We're not gonna wanna stick it up on a hill.
It can be
We're
on a
gonna
side.
do piles on.
It can be on a side hill. It doesn't
Side
matter.
hill, but not like,
No.
not in like a ledge.
I mean, the landfill itself is like this, and then there's a hill leading up to it, right?
Right,
That's
so,
okay.
And there isn't three-phase right there, although there is coming from
Comes right up to the
toward the
school.
school, yeah.
Well,
Not Pine
they
Street.
must have 3-phase for the Four Hills.
Right.
They must have, because they've got a 600
Yeah, I'm sure
kilowatt
they do.
generator.
Yeah.
They must be 3-phase, and that's right there.
We ought to,
Look at the enhanced map, yeah.
yeah, so anyway, we're starting here with Bristol to say, what do you think? Is this a good spot? Or shall we aim
hope
towards
so.
something closer to Route 7?
Yeah.
And to keep the traffic out of, out and away, but I don't know. Bristol's kind of my heart is wrapped around it.
Yeah.
Running the water and the wastewater system and living 7 minutes away.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how big, because the bigger, the more just troublesome it would be with noise and that kind of stuff.
And
Yeah.
we have to know that we can have enough inputs
Yeah.
to
Right.
readily
Yeah.
keep this. So it's almost identical to a human digester, like a human digestion.
Yeah.
Whatever
Local
goes
food.
in, you can't just change those inputs every day. You can only change it by 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
So it's really being the operator of the system.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Recipe management.
recipe management, I guess is the
That's what I do a lot
terminology,
of.
of lots of spreadsheets and calculations and testing on the inputs and control over who is coming, what they're dumping, understanding what it is, and managing the digester so
Yeah.
that it doesn't get upset
Yeah,
and not make proper energy
yeah.
and not
They do get upset.
do what it's supposed
And
to do.
the biggest upset is when, let's say you have Commodore and you decide I'm gonna take some ice cream waste, okay? So theoretically, you could gain 20 or 50% by just doing that. But if you feed it too much too fast, it's just like overfeeding the cows, and the cows forced on it, they get upset. So what happens is the biogas production goes up for a day or two, and then it goes in like a sugar high and it crashes. And so what I've seen, I've been called in for this because I'm the guru. So what they do is say, well, wait a minute, we've gone down, so we got to feed it some more. Say, feed it some more. So the first time they killed a quarter of the bacteria, the second time they killed 50% of the bacteria,
Oh, yeah.
because the output actually goes down because you've overfed it. So anyways, that's part of the
Yeah.
recipe management stuff that she's talking about.
Yeah.
And this-
Pepto-Bismol.
This is a biological process, and as a wastewater operator, that's kind of one of, and having gone to school, started in nutrition and dietetics, it's the same thing. It's just
Totally.
mechanical versus human body.
Yeah.
No, you
That's
haven't
a
got me
good idea.
thinking I probably shouldn't be mixing my probiotics. huh?
Probably not. I mean, just do a little at a time.
Yeah.
Moderate.
The bacteria like equilibrium.
Yeah.
You really
And so
do.
if the same temperature, the same food and stuff, you can change it, but it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to go from X to 1.5X. You can do that, but you have to do it slowly
Tweak
and
it.
systematically, because if you do it too fast, you
I mean, do you have a general idea of what's available?
Something we gotta
around there?
move.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
I do.
we gotta move on.
I do. And I'm sure you guys have lots
Yeah.
more on your agenda, but thank you for taking the time.
Thanks again, nice
So
seeing you.
we'll,
All right,
thanks so much, we'll get back to you after we discuss. And,
Yeah.
Who contacts who?
Yeah,
Contact.
so I guess I contact the two of you,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great.
and I have both your emails now, right? Your
Yes.
email's on here.
Yes, and I emailed
FC,
Ian and
and then
getting you
VTOMS.
as well.
Tom's,
Her firm is VTOMS, right?
but
Yes.
what is,
And your
tell me what
FC,
is the, not the abbreviation. what's it?
Vermont Utility Management Services.
Okay, gotcha.
So water, wastewater, stormwater.
Good.
Very
Contract
focused on
operations.
operating.
Thank you.
That's what they do.
Thank you so
I'm not
much.
an engineer.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk to you guys.
Okay, great.
Thank you
Very
very much.
interesting.
So who do we have next?
I believe Ralph is here.
Should I give up? Or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I had a lot of questions. That's a really interesting presentation.
Yeah, yeah, it's too bad we didn't ask if you wanted to ask questions, because
It's
maybe
fine.
we'd have learned some stuff.
Well, I'm going to talk to them because just because we do solar at the moment doesn't mean we necessarily only do solar.
Yeah.
And we actually started out as a biomass energy company before we went off in a different direction.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to take a break or anything, or should we dive right in?
Let's go.
Okay. So my name is Ralph Maima. I appreciate the chance to meet with you this evening. I'm with Green Lantern, and I'm the developer for the array that has been proposed down on 116 on the Rathbun property, more or less opposite Notch Road. The status of that project is that we plan to submit the Certificate of Public Good application next week. And it's already gone through all sorts of different hoops and hurdles. We appreciate the work that the town did, in particular the Planning Commission and the Select Board, but presumably with some input from you, to give it preferred site status. I realized that it was putting the cart before the horse a little bit because the town is going through its enhanced energy planning process. And as far as I understand, the entire enhanced energy plan has not been completed and approved yet. But
End
at
of
least,
this month.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
But that at least the sections of it that had to do with site criteria were done enough that the Planning Commission could take a stand on our site, recommend that the Select Board approve it, and then last week I went to the Addison County Regional Planning Commission, and they also approved the preferred site status. So that's really great, and we are very appreciative of the work that's been and the attention that's been given to the project from your end. Now the main reason I wanted to come to this evening's meeting was to give you that briefing and answer any questions that you might have, but also to report back on a fairly quick analysis I did of electric usage data that I got from the town. Are you Sally?
Yes.
You are Sally. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I remember the face and the name. So I guess it was kicked off by some help from Valerie, but Sally helped get together data from Green Mountain Power for all of the municipal accounts, the municipal electric accounts. And I went through all of that data. There's still a little bit more that I need to know, but I was at least able to do sort of a first cut to analyze the town's appetite for net metering credits. And when I say appetite, a town can only use, or any sort of off-taker can only use so many net metering credits, because if you get more credits than you can use, then you end up with credits that disappear after a year. And if you're buying them at a discount and they disappear, you're losing value. The flip side of it is that certain meters are very, very low usage. Typically, I mean, towns often have 5, 10, 15, 20 meters, or an accounts corresponding to each meter. And a lot of the meters are very low usage. You might have an equipment shed that's next to a playing field or a recreational facility that only gets switched on 3 months out of the year, that kind of thing. And so we tend to winnow out of the net metering agreement very, very small accounts, because they often, theoretically, if they're maybe $200 or $300 or $500 a year, you could apply net metering credits to those, but the cost of maintaining them often exceeds the value that they can benefit from. So what I did was I took 7 accounts, and I can just tell you very, very quickly which ones they were. Just one second. I looked at 7 accounts, or I identified 7 accounts. So Holly Hall, something called Main Street Ornamentals, probably some outdoor lighting. Airport Drive, 79 West Street Firehouse, South Street Water Department and Pump House.
Can you go a little bit slower?
I can share all of this with
Okay.
you. I'll send you a copy of this.
All right.
Old Garage on Pine Street and New Garage on Pine Street. What this generated for me was an appetite on the part of the town that almost exactly matches the energy output of the array that we're proposing on 116. So what that means is that the town could be the sole off-taker for the credits generated by that array. There's a little bit more, I won't go into the nitty-gritty, but actually what I need to do is sit down with with 12 months of electric bills, like the bills themselves, for each of those 7 accounts, to really chase down every single last number that I can use. And probably what that will show is that the town has a bit more appetite than I've estimated here. But it's still in the same ballpark. So what I would propose is a net metering agreement for the town that specifies those 7 different accounts and makes the town of Bristol the sole off-taker for that array. That would be my
Those
preference.
owners are okay with that. They don't want any. People who own that land and stuff, they're like,
They can't use it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just a piece of land then.
yeah, it's just a piece of land. I mean, they are landlords, so they'll
Yeah.
earn
Right,
a
they get
lease
the lease
amount
thing, yeah.
for the property.
Okay.
They use some electricity in the gravel pit that they operate, but most of it's diesel power.
Yeah. It's great.
You know, it's heavy equipment that they use. It's not electric. And then they have a farmhouse where they live, but that's minuscule compared to the power output of the array.
So in broad terms, what does that actually give us? How does that reduce our electrical bill? I don't remember the percentages.
Yeah. So this is like I said, this is a little bit of a low estimate. I think we can probably do better once I get all the data. And just as an aside, what I got was the kilowatt hours and the kilowatt hour charges summarized in a spreadsheet for these 7 accounts. What I would also like to know is the kilowatts, because there's a demand charge. And there's an algorithm that GMP uses for calculating the maximum kilowatt, power consumption times a rate, which is usually $12 or $13 or $14 a kilowatt. I need to get that data too. So I think what it'll do is probably increase the potential savings. But the calculation I have right here is that, at what we would propose, which is to buy the net metering credits at a 10% discount, it would reduce the town's electric bill by close to $4,500 a year. So there's meaningful savings. It's not enormous savings, but on the other hand, there's almost no risk associated. And the town,
What is the town's total? I don't remember that.
I don't know what the town's total is.
Yeah, I mean, I read it the other day too.
What was
on
it,
the- it's
4,500, 45,000, something like that?
well, yeah, what I got was if you include all the accounts,
Yeah.
I'd have to mess with the spreadsheet to really give you the numbers. I just don't have everything here.
But it's basically a 10% savings, is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Well, it actually turns
More
out to
than
be a
that, I
bit
think.
more than 10%. Let's see.
So like 309, or I can't remember. It seemed like,
So for those for those 7 accounts, it's around 10%. That's right.
Okay.
But like I said, it's going to get better once we put the kilowatt charges in.
Yeah.
And then another point of reference is that I think that you quoted what was it? 13 megawatts of total renewable generation by 2050.
Mm-hmm.
So this is only 150 kilowatts.
Right.
But at least it's a step
Oh,
in the
yeah,
right direction.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this is what we'll propose,
sounds good.
and I will get back to you to try to chase down some more billing information.
Can't you get permission from the town to actually go directly to Green Mountain Power and get this stuff you need?
I can. It's not always all the information I need. I've often found it's murky. Sometimes it's exactly what I need, and sometimes there's less. And this may sound like a lot of extra effort, but there's no substitute for just going to the town office, sitting down with the bills, and taking an hour to go through them. Because then I have exactly what.
and you can just come and do that with Valerie or?
Yeah, I get their okay and make sure I have access to the bills.
Yeah. Because I don't know, it doesn't really make sense for us to do because we don't really know what we're looking for or anything.
Yeah. Did you talk with Don Lorraine?
Yes, that's the guy I talked with. And actually, I mean, it was interesting because he said, oh, that name was familiar when you said Ralph. And so
I've
he's
bugged
like,
him several different times.
yeah, he said, he goes, and I wasn't sure what he was really using this stuff for. It seemed like he was using them for something else. And I talked to his superiors and they weren't pleased. So I'm like, oh my God.
Who's superior?
Yours and ours, isn't it? Don't you own the company?
Well, I mean, it's a problematic process, and I think part of it is that all the solar developers around the state tend to bombard that department where Doug
Yeah.
works
Right.
with data requests.
Yeah.
And we don't all necessarily ask for the same format.
Yeah.
I find that these spreadsheets can look 3 or 4 different ways,
Yeah.
even though they're coming from the same source.
Yeah.
So that's why just going through the bills is often the best process.
I think he sounded like he thought, I think Ralph's using that for something else, not just your project, like to do something with someone. So he was feeling funny about it or whatever. I said, that's why I wrote in your thing, okay, here's this for making a proposal for Bristol specifically or only or whatever.
Yeah.
Just because I had heard whatever he said. He just left a message. I didn't talk to him directly. I was like, okay, I don't know what is going on here, but
I think they're suffering from a little bit of mental exhaustion from data demands because
Yeah.
before the net metering solar wave, no one ever asked for that information.
right.
And then suddenly they start getting, 10 requests a week.
Yeah.
So they better get ready for it because it's really
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
increase.
I mean, and they should.
Yeah.
I would think they'd want
Yeah.
to help it happen. If they're saying they want to crank up the grid and stuff and local energy and all that.
But this gives me a very good start, and what it did was help me to identify which of the accounts would be, significant enough to make sense in a net metering agreement.
Yeah.
And then,
Could be
typically
meter consolidation too, couldn't there?
there could be, although there's no real advantage because when you create a net metering group, you can put as many
Yeah, that's.
accounts or meters into it as you want to. And actually, sometimes it's good to have a little granularity because sometimes if one account starts to use more electricity, other accounts might shrink, and so you want to have some flexibility in the future.
Yeah, as soon as I asked that question, my brain started going, no.
Yeah. But usually what we do is we have a net metering agreement, and that's something that normally a select board has to make a decision about. It might delegate the signature and the negotiations to the town manager, and the town will often want to run it past the town attorney unless the town's already done a number of agreements like that. So that's fine, and that's a process that we are used to. Who is the town attorney for Bristol?
Someone Brown, I think.
It doesn't ring a bell.
What's his name?
No idea.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So I guess the question I have is, for that type of agreement, what would your recommendation be in terms of who to direct that to first? Would it be to Valerie or to the select board chair?
I guess the select board chair, because she's not the manager, she's the administrator.
Okay,
So she's
got it.
answers to the select board.
I see.
Yeah, serves the select board or whatever.
Okay. All right, well, that's what we'll do. And since I'm here, any other questions you might have, I'm happy to answer them if I can.
Yeah, so.
I have a general question, perhaps anyone else could answer. As more and more power is developed through renewables, solar, Green Mountain Power and other utilities are selling less kilowatt hours, but they've got fixed costs that they have to keep putting into the rate base. And I've been reading a few articles about how Vermont's cost of electricity is increasing as its renewable total is increasing as well. And the only way to head that off would be to find new ways to use electricity, and I think electric vehicles and charging stations is one way to pursue that. Does anyone have a comment on that?
Well, if that is partly directed to me, one thing is that in the past 15 or so years, Vermont has moved from having, on average, the most expensive electricity in New England to having the least expensive.
The least expensive in New England?
It's grown more in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and so forth. And you know, one way to look at it, there's actually an ISO New England app you can look at to look at the instantaneous cost of electricity. But the other thing is that, and during those 15 years, there's been a big phase-in of renewables in Vermont, and that's one of the explanations for how we've been able to hold the rates down. Because what's happened is that when there's a demand peak, and the system in Vermont has to buy expensive peaking power from the rest of the New England grid in the middle of the summer and the middle of the winter. In the middle of the summer, that's also the peak output period for solar. So what it means is that Green Mountain Power, for example, would be buying peaking power from solar and paying 15 or 16 cents a kilowatt hour for it for those extremely intense periods of time in the middle of the summer, rather than buying the same amount of energy from what's usually a gas turbine plant in Connecticut or Massachusetts, charging them $2 a kilowatt hour. So there's been a certain economy. I think it's less important now. There's less value to wring out of it now than there was a few years ago, but that's been an advantage. And then what's also happened is that the net metering rule has been changed so that less of the electric bill can be offset by net metering now than it could be before the 1st of January 2017. Before 1 January 2017, the whole electric bill could be offset. But since then, the so-called non-bypassable charges, the demand charge, the customer charge, no, not the demand, the customer charge, the amount that people pay for Efficiency Vermont, energy security charges and so forth, can't be offset. So there's a certain amount of it that can be used to pay for fixed costs that we all have to pay now, including net metering customers. But this is an issue, the balance between who picks up the costs.
I'll go back to my source for some of this information. It was Green Mountain Power.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well.
They say we're selling less power today than we did in 2007.
But all of New England is using less electricity than it was 10 years ago.
Good for us.
Yeah, and that's
Conserving is good, or whatever
That's
is
one
happening.
question. Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
I do think they have a big opportunity with more electric heat pumps, and with more electric vehicles.
Yeah.
So,
Amen. Thank you.
So, if our 7 big accounts are getting their appetite filled, whatever, is there less appetite for more solar or more local generation in town? I mean, we've got to create a lot, right?
Right.
And so maybe the municipal appetite is done, but we've got to still
Right.
create it for somehow just to have it on the grid.
All the businesses,
Yeah.
homes and so on.
Okay. So yeah, right. That's the deal.
Yep. And it is 90% renewable. It's not 80 that we were saying before.
and I have not approached Patrick Reen about the schools
Okay.
because I wanted to first take a look at the town.
Yeah.
And whoever comes in with a solution for the schools, whoever comes in with other solutions for major local consumers of electricity, will gradually fill those pieces of renewable energy supply in the town.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you guys still looking at the landfill at all? Or-
My colleague Vic is, but I haven't been updated on it for a while. I need to ask him. I just don't know where that proposal stands.
Yeah.
I've just been very focused on
Yeah.
a certain number of projects because
Sure.
we're trying to get the
Yeah.
permit applications in by the beginning of July.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
yeah, thank you very
That's
much.
good.
Well, great.
Great.
Yeah.
Have a good evening, and I appreciate it. And
All right.
don't hesitate to contact me if there's anything else.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Thanks.
Great. Good night. Okay, let's see where we're at now. Current business, the Green Lantern project. We just got to talk about that. That's great. The next is the library audit. Do we want to talk about any of that stuff first, or do we want to go through these things? maybe this is fresh. Maybe we
Yeah,
should
I
be
think we
talking
have
about
to.
this. Okay, let's talk about that first guest.
Or do we want to have Lisa present her idea?
The kilo bank electricity sharing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that so she.
Sure, you're another guest, so
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yes, I
Come
am,
on up.
yes.
Grab a comfy chair.
The band has stopped playing, which is a little unfortunate. That way, have a little beat going.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. I have nothing to tell you.
Okay.
That's the good news.
Why did I put it on here then?
No, my idea, and it's a very, it's a germ of an idea at this point. The research I've done is to see if it's been done elsewhere, which I cannot find it has been done elsewhere. So the idea is to use Bristol as a pilot project to start a kilowatt bank, so that when people do their solar installations or have a renewable credit with a utility, they can donate a certain percentage of that to a kilowatt bank that then gets used to help people offset their electric bills that they cannot afford to pay sometimes. It keeps people in their houses longer. It just seems like a really good idea to me. And I found examples of them, like a community solar array where you can then take a portion of that and give it to a cap agency or give it to a certain agency that then distributes it to certain people. I guess they apply, I'm not sure how it works. But I haven't found it on the sort of individual bank level. It's sort of modeled after, a CTO bank at work. So if you have extra CTO time, you can donate it to the bank and somebody who has a medical catastrophe can use it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the basic idea of it, and using Bristol as a pilot project just because we're also generous in giving here.
So it'd be kind of like a wood bank.
Yeah.
So it's a wood bank,
Yeah.
but you just get, you just
Exactly.
store it.
Yeah.
Kilowatts instead of
Instead of kindling.
kindling, yeah.
Yeah.
Less stacking and all that.
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
You just say, I'll donate some kilowatt. Great,
Right.
done.
So there's a lot of details that need to get worked out,
Sure.
obviously, how, first of all, with GMP would be
Right.
an
Yeah.
immediate place to go to, because
Yeah.
they do donations to nonprofits now, but I don't know that they do this idea of
Yeah.
a bank.
Yep.
There is a way you can sign up to donate
To
a certain amount
Yes.
of your electrical.
Right, I could give it to you, for example.
Yeah, I don't know. Can it be actually
Yes.
designated?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah,
That's
you
my
can,
understanding.
you can donate credits to many other
So if
individuals.
I sat at the counter in the corner with a tin cup and asked for electricity donations, that
Yes,
could actually work.
Credits.
one ready kilowatt at a time.
Huh.
Yeah,
So at the
yeah.
Harvest Festival, for example, if something like that were in place, we could maybe facilitate it.
I like getting people to tell them about it and
Yeah.
say, you can sign up for this and
Yeah,
give them the
people,
information.
anybody that's putting in a solar array,
It would only be for solar, for generating. Okay, yeah.
then
Why
they
is
could
that?
donate some of their credits.
Well, it could then, what else generates enough to
Yeah.
be,
Anaerobic digester, we have millions of them.
yeah.
Yeah, I have to hook up my septic system tomorrow, I think.
There are gonna be some funny pipes sticking out of the ground all over town now.
Yeah,
It would seem to me that it would require some management to be
Yeah.
sure that the recipient of this aid you practically have
Gets
to,
credited.
you'd have to sort of do an audit of their electric bill. Whereas with the the firewood bank, someone will call in and say, I'm down to a half a quart. Well, somebody could drive by and say they've got 5 quarts, or they only have half a quart.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier to manage that because people are calling in saying, help me.
Mhm.
Whereas with this, it would require personnel.
Or a level of trust, right? I don't,
Or could they put it out, could someone put it out, say, hey, I need some kilowatt hours. And then someone who says, oh, okay, and they call GMP and say, I want to give kilowatt
So
hours.
Yeah, there
clearinghouse.
has to be a person. There does have to, whether it would be the city, the town, or Bristol Core.
Crystal Core was my thought, because they
Yeah.
are nonprofit already.
Yeah,
They're an established nonprofit.
Yeah.
They've got personnel,
yeah.
Just to
Otherwise,
see
there's
if
no
it would fly.
accountability.
and there
Well-
just wouldn't be any huge load, I don't.
Yeah,
I can speak to the wood bank as I've been involved in that. I think we're now considering ourselves a heating bank. We're trying to raise resources to provide other forms of fuel to keep people warm in the winter. That was one of the biggest challenges, is who decides who gets what.
Yeah.
And we've worked through, you know, the local agencies. And there are different agencies that provide resources to help people who cannot pay their bills.
It's a CVOEO. or-
Yeah, the
Exactly.
cap agency.
Yeah, and so what we decided to do was, when a request was made, to make sure that they went through these agencies because they identify eligibility. Now, having said that, we have had great debates about whether people have to be eligible, because there are people who won't go through that process. You know, they
Or
just...
what about emergency need? Somebody runs out on Friday night, you know?
You know, Bob Donis and I, you know, have loaded up,
Yeah.
you know, half a pickup truck and
Yeah.
drove to somebody's house, you know, at 9
Yeah.
o'clock at night on a cold winter's evening. In the
It's almost like a food bank. Some food banks require documentation, some don't.
Right.
Right.
You know?
So that is the big challenge, and you know, you're kind of relying on people's honesty. And
Which I think-
you know, if there are folks that seem to be, and this doesn't address how you determine, you know, who's going to manage this thing, but in terms of who's eligible, ultimately you'll figure out after a while who's trying to milk the system, if they are.
Seems to me if you ask, you qualify.
If you ask,
Just by asking, you qualify, so you should probably get it.
Yeah, I think that's
Well-
very possible, and I just know, you know, some of our members, specifically in Moncton, there was someone who just refused to go through agencies. You know, it was a pride thing, and but they were desperate.
Yeah. I've worked at cap agencies, and I think part of the challenge is you make people prove they're poor, and who wants to do that?
Right.
yeah,
Right? And
yeah.
so-
It's painful.
To me, yeah, and it's humiliating. And so to me, my idea with this was to have it managed and measured, but not in a way that's punitive to people who come to ask for help. And I think if you offer something like that, people are a lot less likely to game it. So that they understand everybody's honest about this. It's
Yeah.
an honor system. It's the same, you know, at the farmer's market stand, you put in your $5. You don't take 4 out, you leave the 5 in. It's an honor system. So to me, I think basing it on that is would be the model I would like to see happen.
so are you asking for our blessing to go ahead and proceed with research
I
on
was
this? or-
asked to come. I'm not really sure what the goal is for this tonight. I think part of it is to get the idea out there in a way that, is this feasible? I mean, is this something that, because I guess it would involve the energy committees. I don't really
Well,
know.
plus we're looking at all these things, generating solar arrays and digesters and all of this. I mean, we could make it a
Yes.
caveat in one of
Yes.
these agreements that,
Yeah.
5% or 10%
Yeah, that's a good
goes
idea.
into the
Yeah.
kilowatt.
I wonder if that's
battery.
ever been done. That's interesting, yeah.
Well, one thing that occurs to me, and I don't know what to make of it, but I can't envision someone saying, "Oh, I need kilowatt hours."
Right.
No, but
Right.
Right, but they need money to pay their electric bills.
Right.
And another way to do it would just be to let the people who have the renewable energy credits make a donation of money to the cap agencies or whatever. So the people in need who need help with their electric bills
That's good.
they would have the currency that they need, and there wouldn't need to be another accounting system. I don't know.
That's a good thought. Isn't it a fact that perhaps Burlington Electric Cooperative does in fact help pay electric bills for those who can't?
Yeah, I think GMP has something like that too, don't they?
Now,
Well, where you can go is the Community Action Agency to get help with that electric bill. GMP nor Burlington Electric
Oh, they
have
don't do
those
that?
programs, they send everybody to Community Action.
I see.
Yeah, yeah,
thank you.
yeah. And I think that's a good point, and I think part of the idea is, so if we're having a solar array installed, it's an automatic question, would you like to donate 3% of your yearly credit
Okay.
to this kilowatt bank? It's
In
easy.
dollars or in.
Or in kilowatt credit, so that it would have to get managed either through a nonprofit or GMP. I don't know who would do that. But it's a
Yeah.
super easy way to just say, sure, why wouldn't I?
The mechanisms all exist. Like GMP already has a setup where, you know, I could put your meter
No, I know.
on my solar array, and you know, all those things exist. It's just a matter of there's not a loose pile sitting there to be handed out. And it's a loose pile of something that doesn't cost money. You know, you've got the array, you've got excess capacity,
No, I understand.
throw some of it into this thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, I think, is people, I mean, you can donate to CAP agencies since they began,
Right.
and they don't. So, you know,
Right,
this
right.
might be another
Yeah.
currency,
Uh-huh.
so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
A new way to
Yeah.
speak about it, something that people are excited and grateful that they have it and they
Yeah.
want to share, so it's kind of a new thing,
Yeah.
not just the same, oh, I've heard of that before, but this, oh, wow,
Yeah.
I donate to this. that kind
So
of-
you could, instead of sending your $5 when you pay, what we might be thinking about is allocating a certain amount that we generate maybe to residents of the town of Bristol,
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yep, exactly.
Because right now it goes into a
Right.
big pot.
Right.
People might
Definitely see it
respond to
way.
that.
Yeah,
Right, I
Yeah.
think people would feel good about that in their own
Yeah.
community.
yeah.
yeah.
But certainly using Bristol as a pilot test ground to see if it works, what the challenges are, is there enough interest to create a bank,
Yeah.
just to sort of see how it all goes.
And go from Bristol to Five-Town.
So-
To the world.
So what would be the next step on that? I mean, would it be
Just
the
more
Community
research.
Action
More
Network?
research.
You know, the Vermont Law School students might be interested in poking at some of
That's a
the
very
legal
good
side of it.
idea. Yeah,
I know that they issued a paper on how low-income households can actually afford solar panels.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, it's a good paper.
that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
And I think Ian had said, come and talk to you guys, but I also think he thinks Bristol Core would be a good test ground.
Mhm. Great.
Maybe there's a group of students at the high school who, through the environmental club or
You're
whatever,
looking for a way to get into that high school, aren't you?
I've made some inroads.
Yeah, I don't know if this is, do you think that's a student?
Community service.
For them to research how, talk to GMP and find out what GMP could do to facilitate something like that. I mean,
Really, all they have to do is just let the
Work with-
bank
work-
accumulate
work with
and
someone
not expire.
on our committee, work with their
Yeah,
faculty advisor. I mean, if it is the environmental group, I know the environmental, the leadership in the environmental group at the school is in transition.
Yeah.
It's going to be a new person next year, so.
New principal, the third in 4 years.
Wow.
That too. But the other one was Carolyn Petrie, he was.
Yeah. I miss the good old days.
Yeah.
In high school?
So.
Teaching at the high school. That too, though. Went to my 50th last weekend. Got reminded how they were good old days, yeah.
So my 40th.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So, what's gonna happen? Who has steps to do at this point? Are you talking to Bristol Core?
I will, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
and I will actually do more research and connect with somebody at Vermont Law School.
That's
a
great,
idea.
Ken Jones would be a good start.
Ken Jones.
He's the director of research.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Yeah, it
great.
would be interesting, and
Thank
maybe,
you.
maybe Green Mountain Power a question would be, is there any, I don't know if you've done this yet, but is there anybody, any other communities, is there anybody actually doing this?
Yeah.
As far as I've been able to tell, no, but
No.
I haven't asked anybody
Yeah.
that question, yeah.
Yeah.
I could ask Robert.
People do donate credits to nonprofits.
Yeah.
Then the nonprofits use them, but it
Yeah.
frees up resources for them to do other stuff.
Right.
So there's that, and there's, some outfits subsidize low-income buy-ins to community solar,
Right.
but there's no kilowatt bank.
Great idea.
Okay, maybe there's a reason there isn't, but we'll find out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, why wouldn't there be? If there be a wood bank, there could be a kilo bank. Seems,
Yeah.
same idea, the same idea.
Yeah, wood bank,
Sharing,
food bank.
sharing heat, sharing.
It's a sign of the times, so.
Yeah,
Virtual energy.
yeah. Great.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Great idea.
Thank you. Poor people. Bye.
Sally, I don't know
Yeah.
where there's room on the agenda, but I would like at some point to talk about the window project, because I do have some
Oh,
information.
cool.
Oh, great.
There was just a
I meant to have that on here, but I would say, let's go.
About
That could be-
Energize Vermont, maybe?
Yeah,
No, the window guy from Maine.
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
That's
I
it.
meant to have that on here. I forgot to write it on.
Well, I do have information.
He
All right.
did his interior.
Let's talk
storms,
about the window
metal
project.
frame with the double layer film. And, he'd like to explain.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've made some calls and I put this together so everybody can have a piece of
Great.
paper with more information, but I'd like to summarize it just verbally,
Yeah.
quickly for you.
Great.
And I just need,
Yeah.
I just need
Yeah, moving.
one copy of my notes.
All in
Yes,
the
okay.
rock.
So this is an interior storm project, very low cost interior storm, two double glazed. And it's a system that was developed by this company in Maine called Window Dressers. And they're a grassroots volunteer organization. They have 2 employees. They have 350 volunteers that help them produce these kits for homes all over Maine. They've done something, well, what does it say, 27,000 window inserts since 2010. And they cost about $30 a piece. And so they have this program that they provide the materials and they provide the support for people in the communities to do the actual work of building them in your town with volunteers. Let's see, so I've spoken with Window Dressers. They would love to offer for us to jump in this year, but they're really already at capacity. They don't have the ability to produce all the windows that they are being asked to do. However, there is a project going in Vermont, maybe that's what you saw about on VT Digger, I'm not sure, but an organization in Vermont called EnergyC06192019 Vermont has partnered with them to bring the program over here.
Yeah, that's what I said.
And essentially what they're going to do is they're going to help with some of the coordinating, and they're also going to be the ones that go to Maine and get the kits and bring them over and distribute them to the towns, which is a huge part of the commitment that a town would otherwise make.
Yeah.
Could we just steal the idea and make our own?
Well, probably, but I think we could learn a lot this year by
Yeah.
jumping in and teaming up. I've made a call to the town of Charlotte, which is enrolled in the program. They got in earlier before they shut down. I think we will be able to do at least a pilot project, maybe a half a dozen homes or thereabouts, maybe more, hopefully. It depends on how many homes Charlotte actually gets to sign up, but because they have been allocated like 200 storms.
That's great. Is that their transition town group? You know, in the trail? I wonder. We've got a good transition town group.
Jamie Gerlaw is the name of the guy I talked about. He's the coordinator. Anyways,
Okay.
what we would need to do if we're interested in doing it is we would need two or three volunteers to be trained in how to measure to meet their specifications. Pretty soon we would need 2 people to say, yep, I'll be a measurer and commit to going and get trained. I think we would get trained by the guy in Charlotte.
Yeah, okay.
We would also need to do some outreach pretty soon to find out or figure out who we're going to pitch this to. And since it's probably a pretty small number of homes, one thought I actually had was to put it out, to develop a paper, put it out to the CAP agencies, the low-income agencies, and say, look, we're going to have the ability to provide these to 6 or so homes. Do you want to put it out to your clients that you think might be interested?
Perfect.
That's one possibility. I don't know how else to do it, but
In Bristol, that is?
yeah, because for this year, we would just be doing a small number of homes.
Yeah.
Next year, Energize Vermont or Window Dressers is pursuing a whole new facility over here in Vermont that would serve all of Vermont. These things save a tremendous amount of energy for a small amount of money.
Yeah.
And you know, they reduce a whole lot of carbon for a small amount of input.
Yeah.
So I think by next year we could hope that we could do a much larger program. But I think this would be a great way to learn about it.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Just, my instinct tells me that Habitat for Humanities should really pick up on something like this.
Yeah.
I mean, they replace windows anyway,
Right.
so why aren't they replacing top-of-the-line windows?
Yeah. So that's what I got.
That's great.
So what do you need?
Nice. So we need
We
two
need to
people.
know whether we want to do it, and if so, who wants to volunteer to become measurers, and who would be the coordinator. And then later on, I think if we put it out to target the low-income community, we may need to figure out how we're going to buy the storms, because they do cost whatever, $30 a piece.
30, yeah.
You know, I put this exact thing out to Efficiency Vermont in their survey that they put around, and they said, how could we help? I said, you could help pay for windows that we make through, this thing. Who knows what they'll come up with, but that's the way they can help.
Ask Matt, sure.
We had
Yeah.
a marvelous presentation from Dwight DeCoster, head of Chesapeake Valley OEO. That's what he does.
He does what? He does.
Replaces windows.
Oh, really?
You know, and pulling money from a pretty limited budget, the weatherization assistance program.
He'd be a great resource.
I would contact Dwight and go visit him and just say, this is.
They don't replace windows, but they'd be very open to interior storms
Yeah,
that
sure.
are
Dwight
inexpensive.
DeCoster.
For the purpose of getting funds to buy, or
No.
for the purpose of
That
growing,
he's
doing more of these?
It's his clientele
Right.
that needs your windows.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, people,
And maybe it'd be
people
cheaper.
go to him.
Dwight, what's his name?
He probably
Dwight
DeCoster. Yeah.
And
At Chesapeake Valley.
Champlain.
Champlain.
oh,
Champlain.
you said Chesapeake, and I
Yeah.
thought
Wow.
some guy in Maryland. Dwight
Sea level
DeCoster.
rise.
The Chesapeake is nice.
CVOEO,
Okay. Dwight DeCoster.
home insulation program.
CVOEO. Okay.
Yeah, he's up in Colchester.
So,
Okay, so
just thinking in terms of mechanics, if we were to look at this in terms of 6 houses maybe 10 windows a house.
They usually figure an average of 8 windows
Okay.
per home.
So
Ten would be a lot
$240 a house times 6 would be the budget.
Something like that.
Yeah, so
And
less
by the way,
than
the
$1,500.
estimated savings in fuel oil is
Yeah.
greater than,
Yeah.
it's quicker than a 1-year payback.
Yeah,
Okay,
1 year
that's-
payback,
yeah.
yeah.
Though in this case, they're getting them for free in this demonstration.
If we were to make it strictly for the, if we were able to pull that off.
And then maybe with that in our capacity, the next year, we might say, okay, we have the capacity to do 10 houses, but it will cost $30 a window. So that we're
Yeah.
not fronting it each time.
Oh, we shouldn't, I mean, normally this
Or somebody.
is an
donate.
approach that I don't know whether this is being done, where we just target a low-income population. Most people, they just put it out to their towns, who wants to sign up
Yeah.
for these windows,
Yeah.
they're $30 a piece, and you need to volunteer.
There could be some other people who go, yeah, I'll do that, and I'll chip in some money for someone who can't afford it as well, or something like that. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Sliding scale.
taking this approach, I like it, except that it introduces another thing that needs to be worked out, which is the money, the funding, on top of the training and the volunteering.
I'd be happy
Well-
to sit around and build them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun to
I've
do
got
them, and then
tools.
we just need to figure out, how to pay. And I think we'd be able to, if we couldn't find people through the CBOEO or whatever, it would be great if we could find lower income people, but if we can't get money for them for some reason, I'm sure that 6 people would want to pay for them to do it.
Oh, yeah,
It's not like we
oh, yeah.
aren't gonna do it,
Yeah.
it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So we should go forward with it, and
Yeah.
then hopefully we do get the low income thing and
Maybe we
figure
should,
out the
maybe we should
finances.
charge $60 a window for those who can pay, which would,
Well, that's what I always had.
yeah,
You know, from 0 to 60.
buy one, give one away.
So the Glover project, people paid for their own windows.
As far as I know, yeah.
I
Is
mean,
that-
it could be that you.
And depending on what are the materials, because,
It's premium pine
because like Lowe's and
and
Home Depot
shrink wrap
donate
plastic.
stuff to this kind of thing all the time. All you have
But
to do
they
is
need to
grab.
be
Yeah.
precision cut, and that's what they do at window dressers.
Well,
You
that's-
give them
see.
the measurements.
I'd say let's sign up and do this project, and when we learn what it really is, then we can decide whether we feel like doing it or not. Instead of trying to
Yeah, it makes
start the
sense.
project by scratch.
Yeah.
Let's go with the
I
training,
think that's.
go with the reality, and then you'll be like, oh
Let's-
yeah.
There's a lot to learn, but
Yeah.
Acquire the
there are
knowledge.
windows where they don't work. We need to understand that really well.
Yeah.
People need to understand that they can be punctured, so they don't
Yeah.
make sense in all rooms.
And
And they don't
cats
make
will
sense when
wreck
there's a lot of cats or dogs.
Yeah.
Kids.
Oh, my
Or
God.
kids. They need to be, if you're gonna get, 6 or 8 or 10 years out of them, you need to have a dedicated place to store them.
Yeah,
Right.
There's a lot to learn and a lot that should be conveyed to anybody that wants to take it
And
on.
they probably run into just about every problem you can run into by
Yeah.
now, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine so. They've done
So,
27,000 of them.
so let's move forward on this and just figure out what we have to say yes to. Who wants to move I'll move that we agree to the training.
I'll second
All in favor?
Who are you gonna send?
Well, now we decide, okay.
Oh,
So who wants to go?
that. I'd be willing to do that.
I would.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna do it.
All
It's
right,
two,
we'll get
so
at least 3 people.
There's 3 people.
oh, that's
So
true.
that's good.
That's plenty.
Yeah.
So would we build them like in a 2-day period?
Yes,
When you're up and
it's
going?
all spelled
Yeah.
out the way it
Yeah.
works. It's a 2-day period
Yeah.
that would happen in Charlotte, probably in October.
Oh, in Charlotte?
We would probably, yes, we would probably be measuring over July and August and submit the order,
Mhm.
and then they would be delivered and we would assemble, we would help assemble in Charlotte for their larger project.
Which would be our training too, or we have another
That would
training
be, that would
before.
definitely be training as well. We would
Yeah.
learn a lot about
But we have
this
a
anyway.
training before, which is measuring and that stuff.
Yeah, and it's not a formal training because
Okay.
they've already done that. So
Okay.
we won't get it directly from
Well,
window dressers, but we're
yeah.
going to get it from someone who took the training from
That's
window
great.
dressers.
Yeah.
So it
Presumably,
seems like the most pressing issue is who's going to get these windows.
yeah, to figure that out and the money.
And,
Yeah. I mean, my first thought was to just put it on Front Porch Forum. We'd probably
Mhm.
have 10 or 15 people sign up in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
think.
that would probably work.
So that would be instead of going the low income route.
And we,
Yeah,
you know,
I
we
think
would
just
make
go
clear
local.
that we have a limited number, but we'll take it on a first come, first served basis, and we think it's about $30 a window.
Okay. So maybe
That's-
we
that's
just do
the
that the
simple
first
route.
time.
So we don't raise
Yeah.
money, we
then
simply
we-
charge the fee and, yeah.
And
It
then we
might be
did,
the way
yeah.
to go the first
Yeah,
year.
Yeah,
I think
and-
so.
I'm thinking
Yeah,
I think
that's
so.
great.
for this year, I'd
Okay.
prefer to do it that way.
Yeah.
So I'll draft a letter then, I think, or for Front Porch Forum, I
Sounds
guess.
great.
Does that seem like,
Yeah,
are there other
Yeah.
ideas on
Love
where to?
No, that's a good
I
idea.
think
that
it's
out.
great.
And maybe, can I circulate to you guys for feedback before I post it?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
I'll help if I can, I have
I'm glad to
a lot
look
of
at
stuff,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll certainly sign up for the assembly as well, but we'll definitely need, and we can tap the people who sign up to get the windows as well,
Mhm.
to be
Mhm.
volunteers. So,
Because they're gonna be part of they're gonna be building their own,
um,
or we are gonna be building for them.
we,
So we,
it needs to be worked out how many volunteers we should really be providing, I'm not sure.
We haven't talked to anyone in Charlotte yet, really.
Yeah, I have, I
You
talked
have?
to
Okay.
Jamie,
Okay.
their coordinator
Okay.
is, I talked to him today,
Okay.
and
Cool.
he's not sure how many people they're going to be able to get to sign up, because their population is pretty dispersed,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of low income homes, frankly. There are homes
Yeah.
that don't already have
Fancy windows.
thermal pane windows.
you'd be
Well, this-
surprised.
Well, this.
Oh, I
could-
know, I know, but that was his sense, was he wasn't sure that they were going to use their allocated 150.
Well, that's really good news for us, because maybe
Yeah.
this will be our way to do
Yeah.
the project.
So
this
how
year.
many homes we do is plus or minus, I would say, half a
Yeah.
dozen.
That's great. We'll just go get the training, and then I guess we find out how many they can
Right.
get. Or we said we could probably just, if they're gonna get 150, we can probably just work our butts off getting the rest of whatever they didn't get,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. The window dressers said they'd up the allocation to 200 so that we could get in there somehow.
Okay,
Great.
whatever we can
Alright.
get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this will be our Harvest Fest push. Or before.
Actually, before, I think.
Yeah.
We demonstrated at Harvest.
All right. That's great. Nice work.
Wait,
Wait.
when's Harvest Fest?
End of September.
Too late.
September.
Last weekend
For
of
this year.
September.
Too late to open
Find
it up.
people. Yeah.
What do
Oh,
you think?
yeah.
You want to open it?
Oh, yeah.
pretty soon,
Yeah, we
right?
wanna know who's
We need
on
to have
board.
a list,
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe a dozen within a month, I would say.
Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
you think that's our target?
I think we need to pitch it as, we don't know exactly how many we're going to be able to accommodate,
Okay.
but we're going to take it on a first come, first serve.
Yeah.
And we will we'll come and do the home visits and the measuring until we've met our allocation.
Yeah.
Because some homes will use more and some homes will use less.
Yeah.
I guess that's the
Right.
way we do it.
That's great.
Okay.
I've got to leave, but if I'm a part of the quorum, you have my vote on the
Okay.
minutes.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to need to go too soon.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's see.
me too.
Yeah, really, okay.
If I can do my part real quick
Do it.
Okay.
about the high school.
Yeah, right, I'll go on.
Talked with
With you.
Al
Okay.
Cameron, the guidance counselor. He thought it was good. He shared that the current advisor to the most logical place to seek out a student, the environmental club, I guess, is transitioning out of that spot, and there's a new person. So maybe I can get contact information for that person this summer. But I do have he did know of a young woman who is very much engaged in environmental causes, and I know her quite well. And she and I are going to be having a conversation next week.
Is that Jocelyn?
I'd rather not say on the
Oh,
TV
okay, okay, sorry.
until I talk to her.
Okay, that's great. Sorry.
I have to constantly remind us that this is shared with the community.
Right, right. That's great, and one of the things you asked me about was what Alan Kamen asked for, which is totally wise to do, is really have an understanding of what the mission of the Energy Committee is. If we're reaching out to kids to say, you want to be a part of this, we need to have a solid thing. And so what I found was the 2007, Bristol Committee was established by the Select Board in August of 2007. The mission statement of the Energy Committee includes investigating energy use by the town of Bristol and making recommendations on energy conservation, efficiency, and renewable energy, consulting with and advising the town about energy-related issues in zoning and alternative energy, assisting residents and businesses in understanding and reducing their energy use, working with the schools in exploring energy conservation and efficiency, and exploring energy conservation and efficiency in transportation. So
That's
I mean,
amazing.
It's everything.
Because,
It's everything.
because you know what?
You were part of writing that, probably.
I responded to Alan, and that's almost word for word.
Oh, that's great.
You must have wrote it.
Maybe you were.
You were part of the, probably
You must
one
have
of
read
the,
that somewhere and it
Yeah.
stuck, but no,
Yeah.
that's what I did. I also linked him to VCAN,
Great.
and asked that I asked, that she not get overwhelmed with that,
Yeah.
but just, kind of cruise through it.
yeah.
I mean, because we use that as, and then of course the town energy plan. Right.
Great, excellent.
So we'll see. I'm hopeful. She's a
Is
star.
this a student?
See you, John.
You know,
Oh, you don't want
she's,
to talk
about
she's a rising senior,
Okay.
and she's
Good night, John.
good night. Top shelf.
Great. All right, so let's see what we haven't done. Yeah, we don't need to do Harvest Fest. We don't have to talk about that right now. The library audit.
I've had a rough month, but I'll get to it.
I'm
Isn't
sorry.
snowing
you
yet.
I'll schedule it. And then let everybody know, so whoever wants to attend can.
Yeah, do we have,
Nancy Wilson knows you're coming.
Nancy Wil- oh, she does?
I did meet with her and asked her if she knew of any previous audits. She said no, but Matt Sharp had come and done a walkthrough. There wasn't any written report. And I think I sent you that
Yeah,
information.
yeah, you
Suggested
told me.
that when you want, you can check with Matt to see if there are any
I don't think I'll
particular.
bother, because it was a long time ago it was a walkthrough.
So,
I think I'll just go do it.
you're gonna get one of us to do it with you?
I'm gonna let everybody know, so.
Okay, great.
After I talk to her, I'll
Okay.
try to do it sometime next week.
Okay, that's great.
Talk to her,
Yeah, talk to her.
get some options,
Yeah,
send it out, then we'll confirm it.
okay. Great. All right, now we didn't talk much about the anaerobic digester presentation.
It's a massive toy. I want it.
I think you're gonna have some pushback from people living on Pine Street.
That's where I live.
You think?
Well, depends on where the trucks access. They were talking about looking for.
I mean, I
back
think
out the
that-
road.
I think our purview is
Yes.
really about the energy, and
I
what they're
agree.
looking
Yeah.
for from us is a statement as to what we
Yeah.
think about its energy benefits to the town,
I
which I think
agree.
we can
Yeah.
easily do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But all
As-
the other,
as presented and compared to other energy generating options, it seems too good to be true, really. I mean, it's if in fact, she's got to do her research, but if in fact the fuel is there
well,
and it's not
The
going
ingredients list,
yes,
yeah.
and the costs are borne by everybody but the town. And it is kind of a nice thought to have the heat generated that could somehow be utilized by the high school. And
Yeah,
clearly that's a good location if that's an option.
Well, I think we should encourage them to continue their
Research.
definition, so when it's present.
Yeah, the
when it's
feasibility, I
presented,
guess,
yeah,
is the right way,
what it's gonna look like exactly and so on.
Sure.
my
Especially
sense
energy
was, my sense was
What do
that
you think about it?
The
You've
digester?
been quiet.
Well, on the face of it, sounds great. It's just like too good to be true, which
Yeah.
Usually
is
always
a
worse.
red flag. There is the benefit to the high school. There is a local business in that area, which is fairly big, and I know they spend a lot of money
Oh,
on
right.
fuel oil.
Yeah.
The traffic, 5 trucks a day on Pine Street. I live just off Pine Street on Maple Street. That doesn't sound bad to me, but if they could find an alternate route to get in there, that'd be even better.
Well, you think about it, how often do the
Would they be
town
on Pine
trucks
Street?
Exactly, right.
go up and down Pine Street in a given day?
Well, they might be going
This
to
would be
Liberty. If
tractor
they're
trailer. Yeah, I was
coming
gonna
south,
say,
they'll be
they'd
doing
probably
Liberty.
come
They
in
won't
on
be on
Liberty.
Pine much.
Yeah.
If they're coming from the north, they'll come on Pine all the way.
It's.
And that to me is not a big concern because we've been through that before. And I work during the day, so I'm never really home during that time.
Yeah.
So, sounds like a good idea. I think it should be pursued for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like you said, what we can say is the energy part, and someone else talks about the other stuff,
Yeah.
the planning or the
Yeah,
select board.
planning.
We just have to keep focusing on the energy
Yeah.
part.
Well, the other piece of it that is really attractive to me from an environmental standpoint is taking, waste product that can be harmful to the environment and kind of neutralizing it a lot,
Yeah.
Excellent.
Not kinda, completely neutral.
Yeah, and then creating a product, that can be useful in
Yeah.
farming, that would diminish the likelihood of polluting our waterways.
I mean, maybe we could say something like, we heard a proposal from these people and we see substantial potential for contributing towards the town's renewable energy
Goals.
goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
13 megawatts. When you said that, I'm sitting here listening to him, 250 or whatever, or 2,800 homes at 3 megawatts of power, and then 13.
Yeah.
13
Yeah.
homes. Well, there are businesses, there is a school, there's other buildings in town. And then I'm going, is that 13 megawatts sort of an anticipation of the growth of the town as well? Or is it in today's standards,
It's a figure that,
This was in 2019.
what they've done is they've projected on a graph 2025, 2030, 2050, something like that. And this is where they'd like to see us be.
Yeah.
So what went into that, I don't know.
Well,
And that's by
and I
20.
guess the other factor is if by then everybody's using heat pumps, that's gonna drive up.
Electric cars,
Electric
heat pumps,
cars,
yeah.
electric
Yeah.
trucks.
So that's all, yeah.
And there's
That makes sense.
Yeah, I just put in 2 heat pumps and I'm eyeballing electric cars.
Yeah.
All right.
I was looking at Teslas.
We're gonna
Used
go-
Teslas.
If we get on that, we're gonna be on it forever. Let's stay with this.
I just want to say you can get a used Tesla with 40 to 50,000 miles, like the S, for like under $40,000. I
Oh,
was like, that's $100,000,
Yeah.
and it's like 4 or 5 years old with 40,000. And then I thought to myself, well, that's why I wouldn't buy a new one. They must appreciate like crazy.
Yeah. Right.
I guess one thing that just goes into is our 5-town energy committee meeting in Starksboro, where we just learned from different committees what they're doing, and then we had a presentation by GMP on how energy committees can collaborate with GMP. And the main thing is, he was just saying, things are really electrifying, and they were saying,
You're expecting me to remember?
yeah, I know. It's like, wow, I had it written down somewhere, and now it's like it's on my
I'm sitting
computer,
out
not
in the
right
middle of the
here.
field, I thought we were outside, and I had shorts on and sandals, and the grass is this high, and I kept seeing ticks crawling, and thinking I was seeing ticks crawling up my leg. So my attention was to detail was compromised. Yeah.
Well, he was, yeah.
Ticks.
Well, he was just suggesting, you know, encourage electric vehicles, encourage heat pumps, you know, I don't know, that kind of thing. And he said Nissan Leafs are, that's what made me think of Nissan Leafs are, there's a rebate that you can get one for,
Almost
you know,
free. right?
145 a month or something, or whatever it is, you know, really low price, so look into that. He said to encourage people to go electric if you can. But that's from GMP, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big role.
Well, the only way you're
So
gonna
no
encourage
surprise
people is
there.
make it feasible, you know?
And to get your bill made into an e-bill instead of paper.
Oh,
Big news.
Yeah.
That was what he said. And then there were other things we talked about, and I can't believe it, I don't have any of that with me. I guess I left my notes back home about what actually happened there. There's gonna be, you know, talking to the school about stuff and that kind of thing. It was a good meeting, but I'm sorry, I'm not really updating you very well.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's getting late.
yeah.
So, I guess that's it. Anyone have anything else?
Do we need to have the minutes approved?
Oh, yes,
Yeah, so we can post them.
let's do that.
Any
Minutes,
corrections?
good.
Yes,
Is there anyone-
I'll put minutes.
All those in favor? I'm gonna say it.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that sounded like enough.
Okay.
Good.